Thank you, Jennifer. I didn't know there was a mountain up on top of the Empire State Building, but that's cool.
You just have to look carefully. So yeah, that's the whole point of Zen practice: make your mind clear, and then use that clear mind to help the world. So that's all pretty simple. It means find your true self and help the world. So are there any questions this morning?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, please.
I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about the Zen or the Buddhist perspective on death.
Yeah, your true self is before life and death, so it doesn't have life or death. How do you feel now?
Well, I think so. I haven't been a particularly religious person, but facing issues like mortality and aging, I've found the need to have a little bit more like spiritual guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering what you think happens when we die.
So yeah, human beings are very attached to life and death. When the Buddha sees the dead person that Jennifer mentioned laying beside the road, he's shocked. And it isn't because he doesn't know that people live and die. He's shocked because for some reason at just that point, he connects it with himself. And so that kind of shocks him. So then that makes him question, well, what in the heck are we really? If everything's always coming and going, so what? What difference does it make what you have or don't have, what you get, what you don't get, whether your body's here or not here? So that's old age, sickness, and death. So those things point him towards this great question of life and death. So usually we think about the small question of life and death, like how am I going to get to the coffee shop tomorrow morning? Why do I have, what will happen if I get COVID? Those are all kinds of the small questions, but ultimately those all kind of wind up or twist up together and point towards the great question of life and death, which is what are we? Why are we here? Where do we come from? Where do we go? So those are all what we call in Zen before thinking questions or great questions, not what we generally consider small questions of life and death. So Zen is all about, and Buddhism is all about answering this great question, meaning finding out what we really are and then using that to help the world. So one of the essential dimensions of Zen practicing is what we call Dae Bi, which is great love or great compassion. That's Dae, and then Dae Bi is great sadness. So that's the sadness that the Buddha experiences when he sees the suffering of the world, or us too, right? So when you hear about these days about what's going on in Ukraine and you see all those pictures, then wow, you just, I probably cry 3 or 4 times a day just looking at that stuff, It's incredible, but it's going on all the time in different forms. So people are dying. I'm here in Lawrence, Kansas. People are dying here in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm in the United States. People are dying many, many, many thousands every day, just from the coronavirus itself. So that's a kind of truth that confronts us all the time. And behind this truth is this great question. So Zen is all about finding your true self, what you really are. And that's what the Buddha did. And then using that to help the world. So that's what Buddha did after he got up from the tree and went out into the world to teach. His intention is to help the world, help the suffering of the world. So everything in Buddhism and everything in Zen is about suffering. It's about suffering and taking away suffering. It's all very simple, actually. In fact, it's so simple as before thinking. So all these feelings you have, actually, they're true and they are pointing you in the right direction. And when you see those things, it's inconceivable. So people were criticized Biden for saying that Putin can't hang around anymore. Well, behind that is the meaning is, well, we just can't have this suffering anymore. So if you distill that down, that's our great vow. That's why we practice, and that's what the intention of the vow is, to find this Dae be inside of you, and then use that to do something to help the world. Right? Zen is just do it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
I don't.
Who's talking? Wave your hand.
Me.
Oh, okay. Hi, Jane.
Hi. What brought you to this particular practice?
Suffering. I had some near-death experiences. Suddenly I realized that, hey, no matter how old you are, you're not going to be around very long, right? Is there anybody here that knows they're going to be alive in then just the next minute? How about the next second? You don't know, right? So this kind of leads to a kind of dissatisfaction with life, right? I mean, all that happens to us, we get ground up and become sausages, and then we rot away. Is that the meaning of life? What is it really about? So life is kind of, we might say, in Buddhism, we say life is unsatisfactory. It's the understatement of the not the century, it's the understatement of the last 15 billion years or whatever. So what all this points to is finding out what you really are, and then using that to help the world. So it can come in small little packages, like you tear your fingernail or something, and it takes a couple months for it to grow back. Or it can come in big packages where a Russian tank rolls over you and cuts your legs off or something. But there's many, 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 many things. And if you watch them closely, they all point towards this great question of life and death, which is the motivation behind our practicing. So my particular experiences with that are, they're mine, but everybody has them. They come in big blasts and they come in little teeny tweaks, but they're all pointing towards the same thing, this question: what are you really? Because even a casual observer realizes we aren't around very long. And then what? So that's why we ask, God, where did I come from, man? And then you might ask, well, where will I go? Right? So those are all forms of this a great question. It even comes in thousands and thousands of forms, but it's essentially the same thing. What are you? What are you really? And if you look around, it's a little bit hard to figure out. So that's why it's called the great question. So that's what the Buddha goes off to answer. It's kind of interesting. He spends, 6 years trying to find the answer, and then boom, he gets it. While the sixth patriarch, the founder of Zen, he spends less than a second or however long it takes to read that line out of the Diamond Sutra where he got enlightenment, or to hear that line. You know? So whether it's slow or fast or whatever, those are just terms. So the meaning behind those terms is their arrows or their fingers pointing towards what you really are. So that's why we practice. That's the intention we practice. You know, human beings are beings of intention. That means beings of vow, beings of love and compassion. But usually that's obscured by our desire mind. Any other questions? Sounds pretty grim, actually, right? But actually, this grimness is pointing us in the right direction if you take it to heart. Because this intention is based on our perception of this world. And so that's the force behind it. The intention to help the world. Deja de be. Any other questions?
Can you say something about joy?
Yeah, we have many, many emotions. So I don't know about the word joy, but there are these kind of like, I don't know what I'd call them, like you experience joy, you experience anger, you experience hatred, you experience, oh, if only this wasn't happening, and oh, I'm so happy that this is happening. It gives me such joy. But you notice those kind of emotions are always coming and going, coming and going, coming, going, coming, going. So behind that kind of flux of emotion and feeling are these deep, profound ones of great love and great compassion, which is like, I don't know what you call it, true feeling that helps the world. So those kind of, you're happy about this, you're happy about that. You know, I'm so happy that Kansas is the only #1 ranked team in this basketball tournament that's going on. But that may go away this afternoon if they lose. And all of my joy about the Kansas basketball team will fade into the past. So all of these feelings are coming and going all the time. So the question is, well, what's a true feeling? So this deja de be is like a true feeling that leads you to fulfill your intention to help take away the suffering of the world, which is based on our like and dislike mind. So there's many, 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 many words like that, you know, euphoria, joy, happiness, gladness, and they're all those kind of things are always coming, going, coming, going, coming, going. Although in Buddhism will sometimes spin as like true joy or true happiness or true whatever, right? True sadness. So you have to say something, so you're going to use words that are present in our culture to convey this big meaning. But the big meaning of those words is before thinking. So that's what we call don't know. So I suppose we can invent a new word, don't know joy. Okay. So those are always spinning around. It's important to see the meaning back behind them, you know. So that's great love and great compassion. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It's Kat. I just have a question about the transience of these like deep emotions and feelings. Now that I'm saying it out loud, it very well could be that I'm three-quarters of the way through a literary theory class and I'm just becoming a nihilist, although I don't really think that's true. Um, but what's the purpose, I guess, of these feelings and like feeling suffering and joy and whatever you want to call them if they don't last forever, if nothing is permanent? Why even bother feeling anything at all?
Right. It's because of this love and compassion. That's why we would bother. So yeah, everything's always coming and going, right? That's impermanence. That's one of the essential teachings of the Buddha. And everybody experiences this all the time, small or big. Everything is always coming and going, and these feelings too, right? But behind that, that's actually what leads to suffering. So behind that is this uh, great love and great sadness, which is the basis of our practice. So everything in Buddhism is about suffering and taking away suffering. And that's all. It isn't a theory of the mind. It isn't a theory of philosophy. It isn't the phenomenology of losing basketball games. It's about this suffering that human beings have that is so dreadful. You can just see it in this war that's going on for no reason except somebody's weird idea about the Eurasian country that's supposed to emerge from Russia since the Rus people left Sweden and blah, 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 right? So those are all just different ways of framing the suffering that we all experience. It could be anybody, any people, or any idea of history or anything. But Buddhism is based on this don't know your original nature and this great vow that we take. So that's what we might call the meaning behind life, is that it has no meaning. And then when you completely realize that, then you find the true meaning, the big meaning, right? So Zen Master Sung always said, well, yeah, life has no meaning. So once you realize that, then it's possible to find the big meaning of life, which is love and compassion for all beings. That's all I can say about it. I always wish that you could take like Buddhist teaching and put it on a pamphlet and just hand it out to people, and they look at the pamphlet and say, oh yeah, right. And that would solve the problem of human beings here on the planet Earth. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Any other questions?
Can you tell us the line from the Diamond Sutra that the sixth ancestor heard and so got enlightenment?
Yeah, well, in our school here, we translate it as when thinking arises in your mind, don't attach to it. Right? So that's a nice prescription. But what that kind of detachment points toward, what that kind of so if when thinking arises in your mind, don't attach to it. So that's a kind of detachment. But that detachment points towards great attachment, which is the vow to take away the suffering of the world. So Zen Master Sung Sung always said that life has no meaning, but that no meaning points towards great meaning, which is our great vow to save this world from suffering. So that's all I know about that. So I want to thank you all for coming today and practicing.
actually, you coming here and practicing, signing up in Zoom, behind that is an intention, right? So there's an intention here to find your true self and help the world. That's why we're called the Quantum School of Zen. Perceive the suffering of the world, Zen. So that's the important thing. It's this intention to find your true self and help the world. So thank you for coming and listening today. Just do it. Thank you.